amount of folk tales, right? And you must have read many of them. You must have heard many of them. They are fables, they are myths, they are legends, they are, stories with morals, and of course, folk tales. And if you travel anywhere, if you go around in your own city or town or village or wherever you stay, you'll always hear a story about something. Okay, if you go and you happen to be passing a sort of small stream, and you ask somebody who has a fertile imagination, they will tell you something about that stream and something that happened there a long time ago. And then later when you go there again, maybe, okay, you will remember that story. And if you ask somebody, they'll tell you another version of it. So that's what happens with folk tales that come to you, not in the written, that come to you without, not in the written form. Now, why did I write these stories? We happen to be traveling. We are avid travelers now. And wherever we go, we hear a lot of stories. Most of the time, it is history, right? The history of a place, and you heard about the history of the buildings. And when we went to Central Europe, we happened to have guides who told us a lot of the folk tales. And these folk tales were so interesting. They really made an impression because we have so many folk tales in India, right? And most of us are very familiar with those folk tales. And when we go and we hear folk tales from other places, we realize two things. I thought, one is how different they can be, and the second is how similar they can be, right? So the stories, in essence, are folk tales. Are in essence, they do the same thing. They make everything interesting about the place. They draw on mythology. They draw on history. They draw on, the geography also, and they build up stories which are told again and again and take a different shape each time. Now, if you notice the two stories which were put online, they were both about a place called Brno. Brno is a place in the Czech Republic. Okay, it's the second largest city, I think. And it is a place where those people who are science buffs will know Mendel worked, right? The one who had, did that genetic history of the peas and all that kind of thing. Okay, so those who are science buffs will know that. And it's also the place where the Bren machine gun was invented. Okay, but there's something else about Brno which we heard over there, which was a story which is almost 400 years old, when they were besieged by the Swedish. Okay, now this is the Czech Republic. The Sweden is to the north, right, across the sea. And when they were besieged when there was a war and they were besieged by the Swedish, they were totally out of food, water, everything, right? And they wanted to save themselves, right? So they pretended, luckily for them, they had a lot of spies in the Swedish camp. So they had heard that the Swedish army was also having a tough time with food and supplies and all that. And since they couldn't get into Brno, they had decided that they would leave by noon the next day. Now, noon means 12 o'clock in the afternoon, right? So in Brno, it was a very, 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 very difficult situation, and they didn't know whether they would really survive until 12 noon. So finally, the ruler of the city decided that at 11 o'clock, he said, now enough is enough. Okay, he said, ring the bells and for 12 noon. So they rang the bell 12 times. In those days, 400 years ago, everyone didn't have a watch, right? Clocks were not so common. So when they rang the bells every hour, okay, that was when the town got to know what the time was. So when they rang the bell 12 times, okay, the Swedes thought that, oh, it's 12 noon. We had decided that we're going away. So, okay, let's pack up and go now. We have not managed to capture Brno. But actually, it was only 11 o'clock. And it was such a great relief for them that for the next almost 400 years, every day at 12 o'clock in the afternoon, at 11 o'clock in the afternoon, they ring the bell 12 times. Okay, so that is why that story is written, noon comes early here. It is not that it is really 12 o'clock, it is 11 o'clock. But They ring the bell 12 times because that is what they did in 1645 to get rid of the besieging army. Now, this story is based on history, right? There might be some changes and different versions, but it's based on something which actually happened. If you look at the other story, which is about a different kind of dragon, why is it called a different kind of dragon? Because if you read the story, you'll see that it is a dragon which is supposed to be living in the water. In the river, there are two rivers at Brno. Okay, it is about a dragon which lived there. Now, what are normal dragons? Normal dragons are, what do we imagine them to be? Okay, not normal dragons, it doesn't mean that they actually exist. But what are the dragons as we normally imagine them to be? They have wings, they fly, they breathe fire, okay? And of course, they're very fierce. And if you don't consider, how to tame a dragon, I mean, generally they can't be tamed, okay? So this particular dragon near Brno is called a dragon, but actually it might have been some kind of aquatic animal, okay? It might have been a crocodile, it might have been some huge shark, which had managed to come in from the sea, okay? It could have been anything, but it was some creature which was actually terrorizing the people of that place, because when they went out into the water, many of them did not return. It could also be, I mean, when you think about it, it could be that, the water was deep, there were weeds, people went away that way, went onto the water and sometimes didn't return for some other reasons. But this story grew because they wanted to tell, they wanted to warn others, be careful when you go on the water. So they said there's a dragon in the water. And this dragon is not the different kind only because it's not the usual one which flies around the place and breathes fire and burns places down and eats up everybody, but it is catching them in the water. So this story now is not based on historical fact. But when you go to Brno, even if you don't go to the riverside, which we didn't go to, okay, we hear about the story. Okay, we hear about this dragon which was in the water and how it was finally overcome by an intrepid fisherman and his wife, who had a very simple solution, but they managed to get rid of the dragon. And then in Brno, they will also show you in a huge hall, raised up and hanging from the ceiling is the bones of a huge crocodile. Okay, and they will tell you that this is the dragon which was killed. Now, this dragon was probably, if there was such a dragon, the story is hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years old. Do you think that skeleton over there is really the dragon? Maybe they happened to catch a crocodile there, and that is the skeleton of the crocodile. And then they made up the story. Okay, but it is such an interesting story. It is a fun story. Okay, it is it is how a brave fisherman who you won't expect to go out and kill a huge crocodile like that, or a huge dragon, as they call it, and it makes you feel that yes, anything is possible. If we try, we can do anything we want to. Okay, and this dragon, this crocodile, has been raised and kept over there. And when we go there today, okay, when we hear the story, it is like a connection between the past and the present. And that is what was really interesting about the folk tales of Central Europe. You're still talking about them. They still show you places where, they tell you this happened here. And not only that, they'll build a little monument also over there, or they'll commemorate it by, ringing the bell, the bell for noon. They'll ring it at 11 o'clock. Okay. Then they'll have this skeleton up there. They will have, as you'll read from the other stories, they'll also have a little statue somewhere. They'll have a dragon, which when you can program it from your mobile, and it will breathe fire. So this is the way they have kept their folk tales alive. And it can, if you go there, you can see it. If you read about the stories, you can get as thrilled, okay, because there's nothing like hearing these tales to keep you absorbed. And then we connect it with things which are happening in our own country, right? Okay, look at the number of folk tales we have here. Okay, many of them will be of the same kind, but many in this book, okay, are of different creatures. Okay, there are two stories about dragons. There's a mermaid. There's horseman. There's a king who had a lion. Then there's a princess who did something very special, not only for the city where she went to live, but also for her country and for the world, actually, if you think about it. Then there is a story of a trumpeter, who blew the trumpet, okay, to warn people about fires. And there's a story of a priest who would not tell, who would not give away secrets. So there are many stories in this, which I think you'll enjoy reading or enjoy having them read to you. And I hope that you'll enjoy reading the book. Okay. Anything you want to ask me about these stories if you read them? I can't see. Can you hear me, Nisha?
Oh, we can hear you, Cheryl.
Can you hear me?
We can see you also.
Okay. Anything you want to ask about these two stories?
Among the questions that people have typed on so far, there is actually a question called, why did you think to write this book? Interesting.
Okay. Why? Like I said, when we went there and we heard the stories, it was like living folk tales. It's not something that you can hear and then forget about. It's something that you hear and then you want to share because of the way they were commemorated. So it was something that like I said earlier, it's something which is different from what we hear in our own country, and at the same time, it is something that we share. It is so similar. All folk tales have that in common, right? They give you something which is beyond. It gives you a reason for certain things. Everything has a story. Every place has a story. And these are commemorated in those folk tales. And that is why I wanted to share them with children in India. Any other question?
Ashvi Harsh wanted to ask, what is the importance of folk tales in general?
Well, what is the importance of any story? Right? Every story has something to say. It teaches you whatever it might be. It might teach you about yourself. It might teach you about others. It teaches you about places. It's not that we read a story because we want to learn. It's not that, every story is a learning experience, which we set out to get. Okay. But even when it's a fun tale, it's humorous, it's just, it's just a fantasy, we still get something out of it. Don't you? Every story has something in it which makes an impression on us. And that is the fun of it. And a folk tale is a way of, keeping the past alive. So I think that would be the main importance of a folk tale. It keeps the past alive in a way which appeals to people. It appeals to everybody. It appeals not just to children, but to everyone. It's something which holds their interest and gives them a reason, gives them a fun reason, or sometimes a scary reason, okay, for doing something or not doing something. Because you do have folk tales, that Grimm's fairy tales are based on folk tales, right? And some of them are pretty scary, like Hansel and Gretel and all. They're quite scary. But they give each of us something, that each of us gets something out of it. Mostly, I think it's not just the entertainment value, but it's also the experience, because we become a part of it. We connect to the story and we get something out of it, whatever it might be, and from wherever it is. I think also that folk tales, because it's a huge oral tradition, is much easier to convey, and also to build on. Any other questions? Why? Okay. No, okay, I can see the questions now.
Yeah.
I don't.
So there,
Yeah, I can see. Yeah, does the folk tale give us a moral? Not necessarily. I don't think all folk tales give you a model. And what makes them interesting is, like I said, because they tell you something about a place, about a thing, about something which happened there. And how can the story be a part of life? Well, like I said, one of the stories is definitely uh, based on history, right? And in the book, you will find several which are based on history. Okay, they might have been embellished, they might have been embroidered. Okay, and for instance, about the princess who went, and the salt mine. Okay, that is based on history, because there history in the sense that this princess existed, right? The king existed, but the story, okay, that you'll have to read to find out, to think about whether it's happened or not. Okay, the princess was real. Okay, the salt mine is real, but did this actually happen? No, might not have, definitely, most of us will think that this did not happen. Okay, it is beyond belief perhaps for us. Okay, but that is the fun of the folk tale, that it is something nice to believe in if we choose. uh, okay, I can see the questions now. uh, yeah, I don't the okay, I don't think any of them, I don't have an answer to any of them. How did you think of the name of the story? Just as you would think of any other title, it's the same way you think of the title of the story, right? But for instance, the goats, okay, the fighting goats of Poznan. The Poznan is a place in Poland, right? Um, they are fighting goats. There's a story about the fighting goats. So they have the goats up in the tower, and they come out every hour, and they do a little bit of headbutting. So that's how the story gets the title, right? According to what happens in it, without giving away the whole story. Okay. Uh, okay. Anything else? Does these stories give us a way to live our lives? It is something which can entertain us. Reading involves everything, right? Whatever you want to read, whatever you read, helps you in some way or the other. Okay. Any other questions? There are 6 here, which I think I've answered. Any other questions? Okay, somebody here in the chat has said, would like to know what are the important stages in writing a book. Do you want me to answer that, Nisha?
Yes, you can.
Yeah, okay. Well, I've always believed that anyone can write. Okay, and I've always believed that everyone has a story to tell. And it is very important for us to tell our stories. But it is very difficult to write a book. Okay, because what you say, um, and what you write, you know, you have to be, you have to do a lot of work to write it down. Okay, but the most important thing is with writing, the most important stage in writing a book, I think, is to just sit down and start writing. That is the most difficult part. Okay, it's easy to talk about the book, it's easy to talk about the story, but getting ourselves to sit down and actually put our thoughts on paper or on the uh, 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 keyboard or onto the computer, that is the very difficult part. And then to continue with that. Okay, but with this book, this particular book, it was not so. The stories were there. Okay, it was a question of choosing which ones to write. It was a question of which one children would want to read, which ones would you like to would they like to hear about, which were the exciting stories, which was something that they could connect with. And as you know, most children like to read about, you know, they write some amount of fantasy. They maybe they don't like the morals. Okay, always they might learn from the morals. They might morals might be very useful to them. Okay, we need our morals, okay, to help us to grow and go along the right path. But sometimes we just want to read for fun, and these stories are a lot of fun. There's so many stories you've read about mermaids. You read about the mermaid, the Little Mermaid, yes, Hans Christian Andersen. Okay, uh, but that was a sad story, and I don't think any of the stories in this book are really sad. They might, one is a little scary, one is, you know, um, I think they give hope. So perhaps that is what these stories will help you with. They will give you hope. They will entertain you. They'll make you feel good about the places, even if you never go to those places. Okay, you can imagine them, right? And nowadays, when you see that you have virtual tours of so many places, okay, so you don't really have to travel anywhere to see those places. I think all of you will be probably much more adept at, um, you know, maneuvering around these virtual tours than I would be. But you will learn so much from them. You always learn from others. You learn from other places. You learn from other stories. And at the same time, they entertain and interest you, because that's what keeps us going, right? Our interest in others. Okay, so oh, I can see some more stories, some more questions now. Okay, who is the main? What feelings do you get while you were writing a story? Okay, well, when you're writing a story, I think you have to be really involved. Okay, you have to really feel a part of it. And the more you can get your head and your heart into the characters you're writing about and into the situation you're writing about, I think it's the story comes out better, and you can connect better with your readers. Okay, so when I'm writing a story, I'm right there inside in that story. I imagine myself right there. Okay, if it happens to be a dragon, then you know I'm not brave enough to face a dragon, but I'm definitely standing on the sidelines and watching that person who is attacking the dragon. Okay, if it's you and you're brave, you'll probably be the one who's fighting the dragon. Okay, so um, who is the main character in the story that ma'am has read earlier? Um, do you mean the dragon? Um, well, I will just go with those two, right? They're not really. What is the trick to catch a dragon? I think that you'll have to read the story to find out what the trick was, right? This is going very fast. Why do you think writing a story is important? Um, Everybody in the world can't be a writer, okay, or may not want to be a writer at all. But like I said, everyone has a story. Okay, so And stories are important. Stories connect the past with the present and go on into the future, right? So sometimes, don't your grandparents tell you stories? Don't your parents tell you stories? Okay. Sometimes it's very hard for us, if we are living in a city, to imagine our parents growing up, say, for instance, on a farm. And if we happen to be growing up on a farm, it's very difficult for us to imagine somebody growing up in a city. So that's where the stories come in. And that's where, if somebody is telling you a story, you can start imagining it, right? Then you go in, you start picturing it in your mind, and you can connect it. Mhm. Yeah, of course, I like the dragon story. Can horror stories teach you a moral? Okay, I'm going down now. How did Rustin Bond become an author? Well, I really think that you'll have to ask Rustin Bond, right? How do you guess a storyline if you got a deadline to guess it? I haven't understood that question. Okay. Any other questions you have? Okay, you said here what's the main character in the story that ma'am has read earlier. I presume you're talking about the dragon story, right? Because in the other story about when noon comes early in Brno, there I would say the main character would be probably the mayor of the town of Brno at that time. But it's more about the town than about the character. Okay, it's more about the event, because that small little thing that the mayor did, he instructed them, his people, to ring the bells early. Okay, that is what made the difference. Okay, next. You've written over here, can everybody be an author? I definitely believe so. Okay, because I believe that everyone has a story to tell, right? You may not want to write it down, but you can definitely tell the story. Okay, so yes, everyone is a storyteller, let's say. Okay, how do you predict that this story can connect well with readers? I don't know about other writers, but uh, I definitely don't, I cannot predict, right? So I write something which I like to write, right? Something that I'm involved in, a story which um, I find enjoyable, entertaining, interesting, exciting. Okay, and I hope that it will connect well with readers. And if you read the book, I think you probably would like it. The fact that you are here and you're asking these questions means that something has you have connected to something in it, right? It might be just the dragon, okay? It might be just the word mermaid on the cover, okay? Or it might be the word ghost, okay? But you have connected to something, and I think it would help if you read the rest of the book to see whether you like all the stories, whether you would like to one day see those places, whether you would like to um, visit the places. I don't know if you'd like to, but there's so many other places where you get other stories, right? How many days it took to complete the story? I didn't really time it. I um, I really didn't. I don't know how many days I took to complete the story, because as you know, there are 10 stories in this book, and I can't say that I wrote one story a day, so or anything like that. The stories were playing in my mind for a long time, and I probably took quite a long time to write it. And after writing it, to rework, make it presentable, add the introductions which connect the story with the past. You're in the story folk tale. The folk tale is preceded by, before this folk tale, there's a little bit about the place, okay? What we saw in that place, okay? And then we go to the story, telling you, for instance, if I'm talking about the fighting goats of Poznan, it is something about when we went to Poznan, we saw these goats. Okay, and they came out when the bell, when the clock struck, and they came out and they were butting. And we wondered why. What are these goats doing up there on the, in the top of that tower? What are they doing? And that was the first part. Then we went on to, I went on to the story, and then I, at the end, it was also, there was also a little bit to tell you something more about this, right? The actual history, for instance. For instance, those fighting goats of Poznan. As you know, Poland during the Second World War was just, there was a lot of destruction there, right? And during these goats, it's a really old story, hundreds of years old. And when they put the first goats there, um, they probably broke and fell off. And then afterwards, they had to be put back again. So each time these were put back, okay. Finally, during the war, they were ruined. And those are the things which I added at the end to tell you something more about the story. So all that takes a long time. So I can't say that I finished it very fast or anything like that. Okay, how many hours in a day do you write? What time of the day you prefer writing? Okay, if I have a story to tell, I think I can write it any time, and I can write for many hours. But if nothing is going on, then I just keep thinking about the story. So I would like to write for many hours in the day, but I don't think I do that. I write when I have something going on which is really has to come out, and then I don't look at the time. Okay, so it might just carry on for many, many hours. Okay, somebody is asking me, why do you write the story based only on the dragon? No, I didn't. There are only two stories about dragons. Okay, in this book, there are two stories about dragons. There's one about a mermaid. There's, like I said, about a ghost. There's a lion. I mean, there are several stories, but it's not only about dragons. Right? Why is the story in the book? Dragons, mermaids, and ghosts, because these are in some of the stories. That's why the title of the book is Dragons, Mermaids, and Ghosts, right? But that's not all that there is in the book. There are also other stories. Can you share a feeling? Oh, can you share a feeling with us when your book is finally ready and is published? Well, here there are two feelings. Okay, one is when the book is finally ready. That for me would be when I finally completed the story and the story is over for me. Okay, so that is a lovely feeling, and I feel so I finally feel at peace. Okay, and I'm not troubled by all these thoughts which are going through my mind. And but oh, now what should happen, and what should this character do, and what should that character do? That is over when the book is finally completed by me. But there's a long road between when it is first, when it's read, when I finished it, and when it is published. And in that road, sometime along that road, very often, you have to make a lot of changes. You have to edit, you have to rethink, you have to make it more exciting, you have to make it more readable. So there's a long road between those two, when I finish writing the book and when it is published. And both these events give a really fulfilled feeling, lovely. Now somebody can read this and somebody else can enjoy the story the way I have enjoyed reading it, writing it, and the way I have worked at, making it readable. So that is really a feeling of completion. Somebody has asked Zara, how to become a story writer and storyteller like you? Well, I think that you have to become a story writer and storyteller like yourself. Okay, each one has to do it our own way, and each one of us is different. But whichever way you do it, okay, it's a lot of hard work. But it's like I said, when you finish the book and it's published, you really feel fulfilled. Okay. What guidance will you give to young children who want to take writing as a career? Okay. Well, I've done a lot of writing workshops with children and also written these workbooks for creative writing. And like I said somewhere at the beginning, the first step to writing is to sit down and write. Okay. You get the thought in your head and you write it down. Then you carry on with it. So writing, yeah, it is tough because, all of us have wonderful ideas, but our ideas jump from one to the other. And it's only when we write it down and we try connecting it up, okay, to make it readable by others. When you're writing, you have to always remember you're not writing just for yourself. You're writing to make something readable, okay? And when you have to write something which is readable, you have to also write something which is convincing. So even if there are no dragons in real life, okay, your story has to be convincing enough that people believe that, oh, yes, there was a dragon there. Okay, you've read so many stories which this couldn't have happened. Okay, he couldn't have waved the wand and pushed him away. He couldn't have done that, right? But when you're reading the story, don't you believe? Yes, it could have happened. Why not? Okay, so that is what I would like to let's say, not help you, but to make you believe. You should believe that this story can be worked out. Okay, but to work it out, I have to note it down so that when I'm working on it, suddenly I remember, oh, but I said this earlier and now I've changed it. So that's where the writing part comes in. Okay, so you go step by step. It's not easy, but it is really enjoyable for those who like to do this. Not everybody wants to write it. Some of you might be great storytellers. Maybe you will be able to, while you're talking to somebody and telling the story, the ideas will come and they'll just pour out of the mouth. Okay. So it all depends on what kind of person you are. But yes, writing helps you to organize your thoughts um, and work through things. Okay. And if you want to make writing your career, why not? Always ask yourself that why not? Okay, you can do it. Okay. Which incident or story do you like the most? Well, it's not just one story. There are many stories. So it's not for me to say which one I like the best. I enjoyed writing all of them. It's for you to say which one you like. Okay, ma'am, why is a crocodile called a dragon? Like I said, there may never have been a dragon or a crocodile in that river. Okay, it is just that they have this folk tale about a dragon. They called it a dragon in those days. They didn't know what it was. So they called it a dragon. Okay. Then when they had this, they found this dead crocodile, or they killed a crocodile, or somewhere else in the world, the skeleton of a crocodile came to them. They put it up and said, remember that story people were telling us about the dragon? Okay, this could be the dragon. Maybe this is actually the dragon. Okay, so I'm not saying that the crocodile was called a dragon. I'm not saying that the crocodile actually lived in the water. Okay, it just could be that this is their explanation. Okay, you can write any story. What are the benefits of the story? I think I already wrote about said that. Oh, sorry, who can't hear my voice?
Oh, you are audible. You are audible.
I'm audible?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I hope, Manav, you can hear me. I thought I was talking quite loud. Do you think nowadays people are reading less? As a parent, how to shift children's focus from watching TV, social media to reading? Everyone says that children are reading less, people are reading less, right? But my one question in response to this is, how come so many people are writing more? Okay, there are books everywhere. There are online books. They you know uh, so many publishing companies. So yes, people believe that people are reading less, but I really wonder about that. Maybe we do not spend as much time reading. Like for instance, when we traveled in the old days, we always we carried a book with us, and many people of my generation still do that. Whereas today, everyone will have a phone instead, but they're reading something on it. Okay, so maybe you could say they're reading less fiction. Okay, maybe that would be um, something I might agree with. But then how come people are writing so much more and those books are getting published and surely they have a market? People are also reading. Okay, how many are reading? I don't know. As a parent, how to shift children's focus from watching TV, social media, reading. Um, I think um, some children really like reading. First of all, of course, you have to develop the habit of reading, right? That is there. If you read and your children see you reading, they'll probably read too. If there are books lying around the house, they will pick them up. Okay, so that is the first thing. Secondly, if they once they start their that kind of reading, okay, which is not limited only to their school books, and once they start enjoying it, then I think that they would not concentrate so much on the screen, and they would go back to their to books, okay, to read. But I think it starts with us. We have to encourage our children to read. Okay, we have to read. We have to encourage our children to read. We have to focus less on maybe a TV, social media. Um, but I am not really I mean, I am not a parent now of a small child who is attracted by all this. So it would be very difficult for me to say what the um, how difficult it will be difficult for me to say what exactly to do with that. But I would really feel that the first thing is for a child to see you read. When we were young, when my son was young, um, I think he must have been, maybe he had just started sitting, maybe it was a year or so. We always had books around. He didn't have any books, maybe he had two picture books or something like that. And he definitely couldn't read. He could see the pictures. But since everyone was sitting around with a book every day, he would take that book up and pretend that he was reading. Okay, eventually, of course, he wanted to know the story, and then we would tell him the story before he slept. Or another thing was at meal time, because if um, I would tell stories when he was eating, so that the story as you're listening to and hearing about especially stories like the brave little tailor, as you heard about how the brave little tailor managed to kill the giant, he was very excited and he would eat his food very happily. So that is when today we sit in front of TV and today we sit, we concentrate on something else. But if we are sitting around the table and we're talking, and maybe we're telling stories about what happened during our day, something might exciting, which we make a little more exciting. Children would want to hear the stories, and then we could guide them towards other stories. What are the benefits of story in our life?
Cheryl,
Yeah.
as much as I'm loving how everybody is really active today, we also have a concern of time. So maybe we
Yes.
might need to wind up taking another 2 or 3 questions max.
Yeah, sure.
And then slowly start concluding.
I think I don't have any more questions here.
Ma'am, will you write more stories in future based on dragons? How to raise interest in reading books? I think these are general questions.
Okay. Okay. Oh, will you write more stories in future based on dragons? Well, it depends on whether I encounter the dragons. I have to first see whether I encounter any dragons, right? Okay. When we, it depends on what I encounter. Okay. Now I won't say that it's it has to be something which is real. It could be an imaginary dragon. It could be something else which fell out of the sky. But it depends on what what I encounter either in real life or in my imagination. Okay, so it depends on that. And how to raise interest in reading storybooks. Well, they have to just get they have to get into the story. I think anybody who just, who's, when you start connecting with the story, the first thing is when you hear a story, you have to connect to it. And that connection, it depends on your interest. So you might like a story about a dragon, you might like a story about a ghost. And if I tell you a story about, the animals on a farm, you won't be interested. And the other way around. If you're interested in the animals on the farm, you're not interested in this dragon and the ghost. So it depends on your interest and what you connect with. So I think that how to raise interest is more on the personal likes and dislikes of person. I don't know. Can I write more stories on dragons and princesses? I don't know. Maybe. Any other questions?
We have two people here who have raised their hand.
Yeah.
Maybe given that I have 5 more minutes before I close. Manav, where are you? Okay, Stavia has raised the hand right now. Where are they? Where are they? Where are they vanished? If anybody wants to quickly have a chat, I can allow you to talk.
Okay.
Okay, there is Akshay. I've allowed you to talk. Akshay Sharma.
Yeah, okay.
You can unmute yourselves and talk.
Oh.
Akshay, are you there?
Hi, Akshay. Is that Akshay? I can't see anyone. I can't hear anyone.
Oh, he's still on mute and no camera. I think they would have just anybody. Okay, unmuted now. Hi, Akshay.
Yes, ma'am. I have that question that I also love writing stories. Then, can you write any story?
First of all, you like writing stories, and that I'm very happy to hear. Okay. So now, how old are you, Akshay?
Now I'm. What you said, ma'am?
How old are you?
I am. I think 7 years old.
You're 7 years old. Oh, that's just the right age to start writing. Now, I think when you said that you like writing, that's really great. Why don't you start writing?
Ma'am, now I'm writing only.
Really? You're writing, what are you writing about?
I think Krishna.
Oh, that's good. That's really good. See, anything that you want to write about, you can write about. Okay? And later on, when you grow older, don't throw away these things. Remember one thing, any of you who writes and likes to write, don't ever throw away these stories. Okay?
Okay, ma'am, you can also write.
Yeah. Don't
Yes,
throw it away.
Yeah, ma'am, you can also write any story.
I don't think so. I can't write any story. I can only write a story which I'm interested in. Okay, I might not be interested. I can't write about science, about things like that, which I don't know anything about. Okay, so I like to write things, the stories about things I know about, or things I've seen, or things I've imagined, right? But real, something which I've which I can make real in my head. So I think you can do the same.
And given permission for 2 more people, Akshita and Janvi.
Okay.
You both have permission to talk. Yeah. You can unmute yourself.
Hi, Akshita. I can't hear you, Akshita.
Hello, ma'am.
Hi, how are you?
No, I'm fine.
Okay. That's good to hear. What is your question? You have something you'd like to ask?
Ma'am, can we make a story or a book without the name of the author?
Without the name of the author? No, why not? Why you want to write a story and you don't want to put your name there? Is that what you were asking?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Why do you not want to put your name? Don't you want people to know that you've written the story? Wouldn't you like them to know that this is something which you have written, which you have thought about, which you have worked on? You do know that some writers write under another name, right? You know Mark Twain. That's not his real name. Okay. So it's okay to write under another name. You can also write anonymous. But why do you want to do that? If you've written a nice story, okay, you can claim authorship, can't you? Yeah.
Hello, ma'am.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hi, Manchu.
Yes, ma'am.
You have a question?
Ma'am, can you write the story of princess?
Which prince?
Ma'am, princess.
Princess. Well, there is a story of a princess in this book. It's not mentioned as dragon, mermaids, and ghosts, but there's a very nice story about a princess. Okay, and the title of that story is The Reluctant Princess. So maybe if you read the book, you'll know why she was reluctant. Okay, what was she
Okay,
reluctant
ma'am.
about?
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyone else?
I think it's 12 o'clock and we will slowly need to wind up.
Okay, okay. I hope this was okay, Nisha.
It was more than okay.
I will answer everyone's questions.
The questions will not end even if I give you another 1 hour. The kids will love to interact with you.
I actually
Definitely.
because especially when it's about writing, I think
True.
it's carry on and on, because
Definitely.
yeah,
And honestly, this has been one of our
children-
most interactive events, most interactive author sessions online.
I'm glad. This is my first such interaction, and
Ah,
I've never done anything online.
ooh,
Like I said, I always had creative writing workshops, and I think hundreds and
that
hundreds,
it.
but I've never done anything online.
That's a great online start for you then.
So this is my initiation.
Got it.
Somebody has written over here, Yash Kumar. How many stories do you write? Well, you'd have to search and find all the books I've written, I think.
Go to Amazon or go to the website and type the author's
No, I
name.
don't have a website. I'm sorry, I'm very bad at
I
this.
mean, I meant the HarperCollins website.
Yeah, okay, yeah. But it's just this one and my first one.
Mhm. Okay, Cheryl, do you want to have a concluding statement? Any quick final advice that you would want to give, given that all of your young listeners are very keen on listening to you? I think we would love to hear the last advice from your end and then end it from there.
Well, my last the last thing I would like to say is keep reading, and then keep writing, because reading helps you to write better also. Okay, so I saw a lot of people who want to, I heard a lot of people who want to write. The first step is to read. The more you read, the better you can write. And if you want to write, like I said, the first thing to do when you write is to sit down and put your pen to paper or your pencil to the paper, okay, and write. Okay. I think that's.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Cheryl. Indeed, I mean, it's really been an amazing session, and I'm not telling it just to make you feel good, but honestly speaking, this has been our most interactive sessions that I've attended so far since the time we've started working with Harper for these online
Okay, I'm
interactive
glad.
sessions. Thanks a lot to all the parents. I mean, honestly, thanks a lot to all the parents who've been there for your kids. I know the kids would be knowing how to manage Zoom by now, but then thanks a lot for letting your kids join and be so active during this entire session. Thanks a lot to each and every parent who has been here today, and all these young participants, all of you who have raised your hands, who've raised your questions, who've typed in your questions. Amazing interactions. Thank you a lot so much for joining in today.
My thanks to all of you for being here. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, everybody. Have a great weekend and lovely reading to all of you.
Bye.